Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Rigby. I'm the portfolio holder for Economic Development Planning and Assets, and I'm chairing this subcommittee meeting today. I'd like to welcome everyone here to the meeting, including any members of the public present. Don't see any, but obviously to Mr. Mumby from the press. As my first task, I've got to announce, although everyone will know the sad news, Councillor Cottle's sad death recently. This being the first public meeting of Somerset Council, I'd like everyone to pause for a minute's silence. Thank you, everyone. Nick was obviously a big character and a very powerful voice for his community in Glastonbury, and he was obviously very well known to us in planning, being the chair of Planning East Committee. We'll all miss him terribly, and there'll be further details of his funeral and memorial service in due course. Today's meeting will be run using the webcasting system via Microsoft Teams. Committee members and key officers are physically present in the Luttrell Room at County Hall here today. Other elected members and officers may physically or remotely join the meeting to speak on specific agenda items or to observe. This meeting is being webcast, and therefore other members of the public and partners can observe the meeting remotely. The agenda pack with papers is available via ModGov or directly from the council website from the link which was sent out to members. When you're invited to speak, could you clearly state who you are for the benefit of anybody who is listening to the meeting so they can identify who is speaking? I'd like to advise those present that the meeting is being recorded. Finally, as agendas are now viewed electronically, could I kindly request that members and officers refer to page numbers from the published agenda pack to assist all present in finding the appropriate information? Thanks for killing the echo. First item, apologies for absence, Josh.
Thank you, Chair. I have apologies from Councillor Graham Oakes, who I can see is online, and the Councillor Sarah Wakefield is substituting in for him today.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you, Sarah, for substituting for Graham. Minutes of the previous meeting, I'd like to confirm the accuracy of the meeting held on the 8th of April. Does anyone have any questions about the minutes or any points they'd like to raise of accuracy? No, all good. I think we can get those minutes signed off then. Thank you, Josh. Item 3, declarations of interest. Anyone have anything that they need to declare in advance of the meeting? Obviously, we have the standard declarations of panel members relating to their membership of town and parish councils, but nothing else beyond that. Good, thank you. Item 4 is public question time. We do have 2 public questions, and I can see the gentleman who's going to ask question number 1 is online. So over to you, Mr. Horton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, thank you for letting me speak. So just to declare, I'm a co-opted member of Somerset Council, but I'm not speaking in that capacity today. I'm speaking in the capacity as a member of Shepton Mallet Neighbourhood Plan Steering Group. Really just to, the plan is before you today, and obviously you've seen the report, and really it's my job today just to commend the report to you. I personally have been involved in the plan. It'll be 11 years in November, but the plan has been in train for about 12 months longer than that. So an enormous amount of sort of community work, and many people from the local community have been involved in it over the years. It really has been an excellent piece of work, and we had a resounding yes vote in the referendum. In terms of, I noted in the report how it lined up with the emerging Somerset plan. To put the committee's mind at rest, the examiner's report noted our desire to have an early review of our report or our plan, given that it's been so long in development that obviously some of the data is the early data is slightly out of date now. So we have committed as part of the examination to start a review of our neighbourhood plan within 12 months, 2 years of its adoption. So that's not to produce a new plan, but that is to begin the work to review it. So we think that our plan will line up, the development of our sort of review plan will line up nicely with the emerging Somerset plan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Horton, and for your support for the plan. We'll be dealing with that at item 6. And can I just say thank you to you and all of your colleagues who worked on the plan. Without your efforts, these things don't get done. So my thanks to you for that. Over to Alison for a response.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your question, Mr. Horton. Just to say to you that should the committee make the plan today, which is the recommendation on the agenda, it will form part of the development plan, and so it will be a material planning consideration for all planning proposals that come forward within Shepton Mallet, and that will apply obviously considerable weight to those policies from today, should it be made.
Thank you very much, Alison. We have a second question from Richard Thomas. I don't know if Richard's present online. I can't see him there, but should we take his question as read, or would you like me to read it out? Okay, thanks, Josh.
Thank you, Chair. As I stated, Mr. Thomas has submitted a brief statement, which I am happy to read now. I wish to draw to Council's attention to Policy 2A in Shepton Mallet Neighbourhood Plan to ensure the provision of a community room with meeting rooms, social and health facilities on the proposed Cannons Grave Road strategic development site. Shepton Mallet has no publicly owned community meeting spaces. The previous strategic site at Tadley Acres was promised a community meeting room by developers that has never been delivered, and the current developer for the proposed strategic site is Cannon Graves Road is resisting this provision within the current proposals. This is a major community health need, which is one of the main gains in the neighbourhood plan, but needs the support and commitment of councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh, and to Alison for a response.
Thank you, Chair. The planning application for Cannons Grave Road is currently under consideration. We hope to take a report to Planning East very shortly. Again, subject to the neighbourhood plan being made today, the policy 2A in the neighbourhood plan will be a material planning consideration in the determination of the application and will be considered in the report.
Thank you very much, Alison, and thank you for the public questions. We'll move now to item 5, which is the Yeovil Town Master Plan, the request to undertake public consultation, and over to Nick.
Thank you, and I will try and bring up my presentation. Oh, that works. Yes, so I'm Nick Tate. I'm the service manager for placemaking and projects, and I've also been supporting my colleagues in the regeneration of major projects service on this particular project. What I will do is I'm just going to sort of reasonably briefly take you through the document, and then assuming that approval is given to go out for consultation, also discuss the arrangements which are currently being made for that consultation. So just in terms of a little bit of background, this Yeovil Town Centre draft master plan has been commissioned. It's actually been funded out of monies which we secured from Homes England to undertake So setting a vision and identifying opportunities for development within the town centre, very much building upon the work that's particularly with the improved public realm that's taken place. So in terms of the document, it sets out that wider, as it says, appreciation of the town centre. So it looks upon some of the key assets and characteristics, and using those to build an overall vision, set of principles, and importantly, a development strategy, which will focus, as we'll see shortly, on a number of key sites. It's particularly focusing on underutilised spaces within the town centre, and these opportunity sites are 4 areas currently in the ownership of Somerset Council. They are sites which have previously been identified as well in the local plan, so there's a history with those, and it's by developing the overall master plan rather than sites coming forward individually, we can have a cohesive plan, which means that you get the greater benefit of looking at these opportunities together and securing the necessary wider investment. So as it says there, sort of key objective is to use the development of those key sites, you know, as a catalyst for further investment. So whilst those sites are in public sector ownership, the document also has a wider role in encouraging and supporting investment from other sources, both private and public. So as mentioned, there's been recent investment in public realm, and particularly the 2020 funding from the Future High Streets funds, and those completed public realm works have led to an enhanced field, as we say, for the town centre. So it's starting to create the ingredients for that sort of regeneration and improvement in vitality. Those improvements are very much about sort of physical improvements to attract and make it easier to come into town centre. This next stage is about, I suppose, the ingredients to get people in and using and making use of those facilities. In terms of the opportunity sites, Glover's Walk, which is a site which is moderately recently was acquired and is, I say currently, it probably is still currently being demolished. That is one of the significant sites which we'll look at shortly. In the short term, it also provides opportunities for, as it says, these meanwhile uses, given that there is going to be a period of time when the site is cleared, but there is no committed development coming forward. And we're already seeing some of that, as it says, with the use of public art, and there are other ideas that have been put forward from the locality. Yeah. Stop sharing. I didn't tell it to stop sharing. Apologies. I shall try and get back on track.
Those of you remotely, we're just trying to get the presentation back online. In the meantime, I'm going to sing some Frank Sinatra.
I will read.
Josh has asked me not to do that.
Right. Join, hopefully. Apologies. It wasn't me, I swear. I'm not, so this slide, it's a busy slide. It's not to read the text in detail. It's just gives an indication of the structure of the document. So in terms of introduction, looking at how the town functions today, looking at those strategic regeneration initiatives, unpacking the economic role of the town centre, and also looking in, which is very important, looking at the viability of the existing market. Then moving into those constraints and opportunities and bringing this together in addition to the engagement which has taken place to come up with this master plan framework. And then the final section, which is quite detailed, looks a bit more in detail at the opportunity sites and how they come forward. So that's the structure of the document. and the very small plan there shows the 4 opportunity sites, so North Lane and Court Ash, Glover's Walk on Earl Street, then what's referred to as Glover's South Quarter, and that includes the former Wilkinson store, and then South Street and Box Factory. So again, not going to go into sort of detail, but this is just to highlight how bringing together all of the work on constraints and opportunities, it starts to shape the strategy itself. Very much looking at the consolidation of retail, having to accept a reduced uptake in terms of office space, and increasing demand for different types of town centre uses. Obviously, things which are, in particular, you're looking for uses which can't perhaps easily be replicated online, so you're attracting people physically into the town centres. Flags up the historic nature of a town centre. That's really important and an opportunity to make more of. And then in terms of further opportunities, the sites themselves, and particularly those on the eastern side of the town, which collectively form quite a cluster of opportunities to bring around a real sort of positive change to our eastern entrance to the town. As we mentioned, viability and looking to improve viability is going to be important, and that will be one of the key next stages. And in terms of our final opportunity, the fact that the sites are in council ownership does give ourselves some slight greater control in terms of ensuring that developments come forward in line with the wider ambitions. So the document pulls this together. It creates a vision statement. What I would say about the vision statement, they are very difficult vision statements to make them, I suppose, really place specific. I think this will be a key part of when we're out for consultation, of getting that input. But it does specifically refer to the town embracing that technology, particularly in that aeronautical sector and engineering sectors. So identifying, what Yeovil is about at the moment, and also the opportunities around the creative community. Flowing from the vision, there are 4 key objectives that flow through the opportunity sites. So these are talking about, I suppose, putting the elements of a town back together to make it a better place. I've mentioned about rebalancing land uses, so that we're moving away from just retail and office use potentially, trying to get a better mix, and particularly getting people living in the town centre, making more of that built heritage, and importantly improving the links to the the natural environment, particularly to the south and the country part, but including sort of new links to those areas. Again, in terms of a document, you can look at this in a bit more detail, but you bring, this just demonstrates there's a process really of bringing together these opportunities, so the heritage opportunities, the environmental opportunities, looking at the movement around the town, bringing that together into an overall master plan document, and that's the larger. I wasn't even touching my screen. Apologies, I don't know why I keep being thrown out of Teams. 1 minute. I'll go quicker. So moving, the document includes that overall master plan. I'm just going to move on to a little bit more detail on the 4 opportunity sites that have been identified. So the document provides, I suppose, some it identifies those as real opportunities to start this process moving forward. They are primarily based on existing car parks, and in a moment I'll just summarise the car parking position. I know that's been raised as an element of concern in terms of ensuring that there is still sufficient retained. So in terms of the first of those sites, the North Lane, Port Ash, so this is the site to the north of the church. So the impact and relationship to the listed church and conservation area is important. The topography will also play an important part in how this site comes forward. But as it says, it's an opportunity for a mix of townhouses, maisonettes and apartments, and creating probably a new residential quarter in this location. People know Yeovil probably better than I do, indeed, but it is to the south of, or sort of southwest of the former cattle market area. The cattle market's not identified specifically as an opportunity site here, but clearly there's been long-standing ambition to bring that forward. And again, investment in this site may well add and enable that to come forward through that sort of greater confidence. The Glover's Walk shopping centre, as I say, the site is currently being, or a significant part of the site is currently being cleared. This is probably the key site in terms of the opportunities to provide a new and improved bus station. So as it says, mobility hub, so it would be public transport interchange, also providing those opportunities for improved walking and cycling. It is also a site that has an opportunity for so say a mix of uses, and it's been identified particularly as having potential for NHS facilities, but as it says there, including both actual primary healthcare, but importantly key worker accommodation. And again, this just gives an indication of the level of detail in the document, where it's just a simple exercise in building massing, but it tries to give an indication of what might be achievable on that site. None of these development options are over prescriptive, but they are setting out the key sort of parameters for development. The third site, Glover's Quarter, so that also includes the former Wilkinson's store. Again, redevelopment opportunities. The building itself has, I think it'd be fair to say, limited architectural merit. But in terms of proposals, mixed use in terms of residential, but also opportunities, particularly on ground floor, for other community uses, and some of the ideas being looked at, and particularly around, as I say, nurseries, potential workspace and other commercial uses on ground floor. And then the final opportunity sites, Start Lane Box Factory. So this combines 3 quite small areas of car parking together under the council's ownership. So bringing those together into a single site, which offers opportunities for redevelopment. This site is to the south, well connected to recent development, and then the country park, and certainly has a real opportunity to create a new, quite vibrant living quarter within Yeovil, and also taking its clues from the residential development in and around the area. Just on parking, we are doing further work on this. Fundamentally, parking reviews have identified an underutilisation of car parking in Yeovil. Potentially the occupancy outside of the Christmas period is around 57%. That has led to the understanding that there is capacity to redevelopment some of those car parks. And the proposals here could lead, it says there, sort of loss of 600 spaces. To be honest, I probably will do the less, because the last slide is about next steps. So, but in terms of parking, when we presented initial ideas to the town council and also to the previous board, I think there's been concerns have been expressed to make sure that redevelopment doesn't come at the expense of ensuring there's still sufficient and attractive car parking, and further work does need to be done on that. But importantly, you've got both the positives of improving public transport and encouraging other modes into the town centre. You've got the positives of getting people living within walking distance of facilities. And as part of the master plan, you improve and make the remaining car parking more accessible and legible for people. But it's really important that this is a strategy that both accommodates the needs now, but also the needs in the future when this is proved successful. So just finally, in terms of the next steps, the intention and obviously the recommendation is to go out for formal consultation on the document, and the intention is that will be 6-week period of public consultation, likely to start towards the end of September, and the start is probably will coincide with the next Yeovil Super Saturday event, which is on the 20th of September. A really good opportunity. We'd have physical presence, material there, and it's a great opportunity as well to sort of launch that and get the consultation out to the wider public. Obviously, that would be accompanied by press and social media releases and online web site, there's a questionnaire which is being developed. The consultants WSP who are helping are in direct engagement with our own consultation team to ensure that everything meets the council standards in terms of accessibility. And so following that, the intention will be to consider any comments that come back, to make necessary changes, and it will come back to a future meeting of this subcommittee for approval, which stage it would be a material planning consideration in terms of providing guidance for planning applications. But I think as important is it's an adopted strategy, which in itself, and proof has shown, particularly in the likes of Taunton and Bridgewater, adopted strategies when they're in place enable you to bid and bring in further funding. You're ready to go and you're meeting criteria for particularly people like Homes England. So it has that dual purpose. Sorry to go on a bit, and apologies for the technical problems.
Thank you very much, Nick. I'm really pleased to see the progress that's been made with this master plan. Yeovil's a great town. I've got to know it much better in recent years. But like many towns, it needs intervention to help it adapt to the new reality of less retail. Helen Kay, could you mute? Thank you very much. Thanks. Good work, Josh. Yeah, it needs to adapt to the new reality of there being less retail and less office space in the town. And I think the master plan does a really good job of helping it do that. I went to see Yeovil Town play on Saturday. I was very pleased to see they bucked the trend of losing their opening game for the last 9 years. They did only draw, but at least they didn't lose. And it was good to get to meet the new owners of Yeovil Town Football Club, who have ambitions not only for the club, but for the town beyond. So I'll be spending some time with them in the coming weeks. The refresh, I think, was a really good start. It was painful, I think it's probably fair to say, in terms of its delivery, especially with the loss of the initial contractor. But the work as completed, I think, is welcome and does lift the town quite considerably. And we've also been, as facilitated by the local MP, Adam Dance, talking to investors and local landowners about what we as a council can do to facilitate their investment in the town. And with that, I will throw open the floor to members of the committee for any questions or comments. Bill.
Thank you. Yeah, very pleased to see this document, and it's very welcome. I think Yeovil is at a turning point, and we will see some real successes in Yeovil as we go forward. I think this master plan has the capacity to provide the foundation stones for that. Particularly welcome the views that it looks at how the future of high streets will be, where people won't just be spending money. They will be in retail, they'll be spending time, and they will be living as well as working in town centres. Just one question from me that just let out as possibly a missed opportunity. was around the cattle market area, and whether I know that there were ideas in the original Yeovil refresh for the cattle market, and I wondered whether there was a rationale behind leaving it out of the scope of this document. Thank you.
Nick, any comments on the cattle market?
I'd have to say I'm not absolutely sure with the original brief, but it was largely, this is a start of that process, but the opportunity for the Homes England money came quite late in the financial year, and there was approximately 8 weeks to undertake this piece of work. So it very much was a case of cutting your cloth accordingly. But the overall master plan does identify that as an opportunity site, and the momentum that is coming from looking at Yeovil in quite a lot of detail means that if that site is starting to move forward in terms of viability, there are overall design principles that will help shape what comes forward to make sure that it's not just what the owners want, but it meets our overall ambition in terms of the town centre.
Thanks, Nick. Is it fair to say that the land ownership issue has been a stumbling block in that it's been empty for many years? And my understanding was that there had been some issues around that.
Yes, that has been the case, and we're also very aware that it's not, it's potentially an expensive site to bring forward because of contamination. Although, again, most recently, when we were discussing this site, it's believed that the contamination issues may not be quite as onerous as previously thought. So that all starts to make owners more interested in cooperating together and bringing forward, because they start to see it as a positive asset rather than a liability.
Thanks, Nick. Bill?
Yeah, thank you. That helps understand the context, and just look forward to that site potentially coming forwards. I think it could be an addition to the Yeovil Town Centre offering, and potentially offer essential worker accommodation because of its location. But overall, just emphasise that I'm really pleased with this document. I think it's going out to consultation. I've been fascinated to see the feedback that we get from residents in Yeovil. I know the stakeholders have been positive about what they've seen so far, and I look forward to it coming back to us in its future iteration. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Anyone else? Richard?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Really pleased to see the work on the connectivity around all this work, and that's obviously a vital part of creating a more purposeful town centre. But I would be interested in what weight that the areas up to development will be required to mesh in to the current network of cycle paths and open spaces.
Thanks, Richard. Nick?
Yes, I mean, the starting point in the hierarchy is looking at active travel as your first transport option, and within town centres they are the most sustainable locations, but legitimately one can seek contributions to be joining elements up, because that's often the issue with our town centres. We have nearly a good network because of how things have come forward, and by identifying all of those sort of key routes, this means you can direct fill in those gaps to make them genuinely useful. The other thing we need to remember, although I know a great deal of emphasis tends to be on some of our larger greenfield sites, but we have got our overall placemaking principles as well, and so schemes have to be meeting the requirements there, which again has the emphasis and the starting point of looking for accessibility by sustainable means.
Thanks, Nick. Sarah? I've got Graham. Yeah. Okay, we'll go to Graham.
Thank you, Mike. There's a lot of really good things in this master plan, and it is good to see, obviously, that looking to develop Yeovil and go on to meet its potential and to adjust the town to meet the changing needs of the way things are looking in the future. Most of the sites identified, I strongly support. I do still, I have asked but not been sent. I would like a map of all the car parks and the data on their usage, because I have a feeling, but it's a purely anecdotal, is that this proposal develops all the busiest car parks in the town centre and not the less used ones. And it would be interesting, and happy to meet directly with the officer, but to look at things like the Petters Way short stay car park, the Hewish car parks that are on the edge of the town centre and that they're not being touched. And that seems to not make a lot of sense, in the sense of, if we're going to have a vibrant town centre with a nice evening sort of culture, people need to get there. This isn't Taunton. There is no park and ride. There are very few buses. Richard's done a brilliant job, but there are very few buses, no park and ride. You're going to get there either on a bicycle or walking or in a car. And so we do need to keep enough car parks near the centre of the town to make this work, and getting that balance quite right. Some of those car parks we've been wanting to be developed for a number of years, like the Box Factory, Stars Lane, that all makes sense. But possibly the other ones are a step too far. But I'd like to see the actual numbers so that I can understand the logic and ask why certain sites. But I don't think that's at this moment is that. I'd like to, perhaps, if I could be given that information, and then I could meet with the relevant officer and pick their brains. Would that be acceptable?
Yeah, we can certainly make that happen, Graham. I don't suppose we have that information here today, but we'll make sure that that car parking data makes its way to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah.
My question is actually on the same point, in the sense that I would have thought with a master plan, you need a car park strategy as part of it. I'm not sure if that's how these things work. I don't know enough about them, but yes, you're going to build on car parks, which I understand why you're going to do that. It certainly has been the plan in Taunton for a while to build on some of the car parks, but I think we need a strategy. I mean, for example, we could say that if you're going to build houses, you must always build an underground car park with it. I know it makes it more expensive, but they do great things in France with those. They work really well, and you can get right into the town centre and park right in the middle. So I just wonder whether, and I don't know what the rock type's like, so maybe you can't do that. Maybe it's trying to blast away something that you can't do. But I just think we need a strategy with it. I just think it goes alongside it, because you're going to put a lot of more housing in, which is great as well. People want to live in town centres, but they will want a car somewhere. Maybe a car share scheme, something. We just need a few ideas about how we're going to deal with the car.
Thanks, Sarah. Some really good points there. Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. In part, you have to remember, part of this is about a consultation document, and I think those points are really important. Only very recently, and it was in terms of the material, the map's been created, which, so it's not in the main document, but the map's been created, which does show, certainly shows the number of spaces that and where they are that would remain if the sites came forward in their entirety. And it also shows things like 200-metre walking, so you can start to see if there's gaps, because if all of your car parks are at the wrong end of the town centre, that dissuades people. And the other thing is, as we've flagged up, is even with the redevelopment sites, I mean, I'd 100% agree. There's certainly opportunities for innovation. There's opportunities that could still retain an element of car parking. Whether this country doesn't tend to go down so often, you go to the continent and the first thing they do is put 3 cranes up and dig down and put basements in. Viability is an issue, but there are other ways of delivering. So I think those points are going to be, we will expect more of that to come back through the consultation. But you know, I do agree, and I think it's not just about the physical provision; it is the type of tenure, where your short and long stay are, and how you're making that support the town centre.
Thanks, Nick. Any more questions on the Oval Master Plan? No? Okay, good. Well, I'll read out the recommendation. So the Planning and Transport Policy Executive Subcommittee is being asked to agree to A, approve the draft Yeovil Town Centre Master Plan and associated supporting documents for public consultation. B, agree that the following are delegated to the Head of Planning in consultation with the lead member for Economic Development Planning and Assets. And those are: 1, the screening of the Yeovil Town Centre Master Plan under the European Directive 2001/42/EC and associated environmental assessment of plans and programmes regulations 2004, EU Habitats Directive and associated conservation of habitats and species regulations, together with the production and consultation of resultant reports, should they be screened as required. 2, approve and make any minor changes prior to consultation. 3, approve and make any amendments necessary following public consultation, and to finalise the documents for consideration and adoption at a future planning and transport policy executive subcommittee meeting. Can I see all those in favour of that recommendation, please? Oh, proposer and seconder. Thank you very much, Josh. Bill's going to propose and Richard's seconding. Let's see the hands. Thank you. That's carried. Thank you very much for that, Nick. We'll move on to item 6 now, the Shepton Mallet Neighbourhood Plan to be made, and Joe will be leading us through that. Thank you.
The Shepton Mallet local plan, neighbourhood plan, was begun back in 2014 when the area was first designated for the whole of Shepton Parish. It was paused after an initial consultation and restarted in 2023. Further community consultation was carried out at that time. It was followed by an examination. We received the report for that in March this year, which recommended, with some modifications, that the plan went forward to a referendum. That was held on the 17th of July, and 84% of the people voting voted in favour of adopting the plan. It includes 17 policies of various sorts. Some of the highlights are there is a site for 150 homes allocated. There are support for improvements to the town centre. There are some design principles set out. There are 15 local green spaces designated. There's support for walking and cycling, and there is support for community facilities of a variety of sorts. It's been prepared in accordance with the Neighbourhood Plan regulations and retained EU obligations. The council is under an obligation to make the plan within 8 weeks of the referendum in the event of it a yes vote, and it will then form part of the development plan to be used in determination of planning applications in the parish of Shepton Mallet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just a quick question from me. What was the turnout on the referendum? Do we have that?
15%.
Okay, thanks very much. Any questions from committee members? Look at that. Everyone loves it. Okay, well, in which case we will move to the recommendation, which is that the Executive Planning and Transport Policy Subcommittee agrees, A, that the Shepton Mallet Neighbourhood Development Plan be made, in other words, adopted as part of the statutory development plan, and to be used in determining planning applications in the neighbourhood area, which is the parish of Shepton Mallet. Can I have a proposer for that, please? Don't all run in. I'll take Richard. I think his hand got up first, and second, Sarah. Thank you. All those in favour of making the local plan. Thank you very much. Look at that. Nice and simple. You got your wish, Mr. Horton. We'll move on to item 7, Cannington Neighbourhood Plan, and Emma Norman's going to take us through the report. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The preparation of the Cannington Neighbourhood Plan began in 2016 and has included considerable community engagement and 2 rounds of statutory consultation. The plan doesn't allocate any specific sites for development, but includes policies relating to housing, the natural and built environment, transport, business, education, and community facilities. And climate change is addressed as a cross-cutting theme within these policies. The neighbourhood plan and its evidence base was independently examined in March, and a referendum was held on the 10th of July of which 91.8% of voters were in favour of the plan being used to help decide planning applications. The neighbourhood plan is now before members to be made as part of the development plan for the parish of Cannington.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions from committee members? We look equally delighted with this one as well. Congratulations. The recommendation here is that the Planning and Transport Policy Executive Subcommittee approves the Cannington Neighbourhood Plan be made as part of the Statutory Development Plan. As part of the Statutory Development Plan, the made Neighbourhood Plan will be used in the determination of planning applications in the neighbourhood area, which is the parish of Cannington. And a proposer for that, please. Thank you, Bill. And a seconder, I'll take Richard. All those in favour of making the Cannington local plan, neighbourhood plan. Thank you. That's unanimous. Thanks very much. So item 8, Somerset local plan and engagement. And Tandy's going to take us through that. No, she's there.
Mine too.
That the one.
Great.
Hopefully you won't get kicked down.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I'm going to attempt to share and hopefully not have the experience Nick did. Okay, so a couple of items on consultation and engagement for the local plan. There are two parts to this, that we're seeking approval for the consultation and engagement strategy, and then also terms of reference for a new cross-party member working group. So the first bit of this, the consultation and engagement strategy, sets out a few things, like the governance and project management structure. It sets out the staged approach to engagement. Right, better keep up with the slides. And it also looks at inclusive engagement with underrepresented groups and how we might go about that, and also identifying who they might be. It aligns with the Statement of Community Involvement and also the Local Development Scheme. So this just sets out broadly the timescales that we're working to, and I'm sure we've had discussions, and you'll appreciate about the short timelines we're working for too, in terms of local plan development. So the pressure is to get the right balance between the consultation and engagement and having a version of a draft plan that is something that we can use as material consideration in determining planning applications as soon as possible. So a key bit of this consultation and engagement strategy is this consultation and activities plan, which is a live document. So the intention is that it's updated periodically at each stage. And this enables us to reflect on what's happened previously, the evolving evidence base, and what we need to do next. So it allows us to be responsive. It's going to be a mixture of digital and in-person as well, and also some targeted engagement, particularly with LCNs, city, town and parish councils, and also community groups as well. So the second part of this item is the cross-party member steering group, and particularly the terms of reference for that. And really the purpose is to support local plan development and also other development of other DPD documents, development plan documents. So it's not a decision-making body, but it will help in shaping policy direction and as a way of championing engagement from members and really embedding member engagement throughout the process of plan making. So the idea is that there are 13 members, and this is split across the geography of Somerset, with representation from across the political spectrum. to be chaired by the lead member for Economic Development, Planning and Assets, so Mike, and supported by Democratic Services and Planning Policy as well. And the idea that this group is confidential, so it won't be a public meeting. And this is to enable open discussions. So meetings, it allows members to test ideas and help shape things. And just generally the direction of the plans in a constructive and collaborative way. So yeah, these are the recommendations. And then following this, we'd hope to begin appointing members to the group. If that all looks good.
Thanks, Tandy. Any questions? Richard?
Yeah, I'm very intrigued about this method of engagement because it has to be so vast and corporate a lot. But what I'm concerned about is having control of the tracked changes. So as things are altered, you know, keeping the understanding the time scale and the reasons why things have been altered. So will there be a document come the end of it that makes it clear how the consultation has shaped the document?
As part of the plan making process, we are required to produce a consultation statement which sets out what consultation we've undertaken during the lifetime of the development of the local plan and how those issues have been addressed. So we will be using this as a live document to track what's happened, what's come out of each stage of the consultation so that we can provide that.
Thanks, Alison. Anyone else? Sarah, you look poised to.
Thank you, Chair. Now, I'm just, I know that you've done a lot of groundwork already on various things you've engaged with. I've been told that we're going to have a big engagement about housing and housing need and the rest of it. Is that happening internally between officers? Because I've not been asked about it myself. I just wondered how that works, that bit about housing need and stuff.
Okay. Who wants to have a go at that? Kate?
We are going to do some member briefings on where we are, and there's been there'll be a briefing note that goes round when we get the final study completed. So as we have done with all the evidence base, we've kind of produced a briefing note for members, but I'm not aware of any kind of specific sessions we're having on that. So are you able to kind of expand on what you've been told, Sarah?
Well, obviously, I'm now involved with the housing options team and the rest of it. But, you know, we want certain types of houses for Somerset, you know, houses for life, all sorts of things we've got ideas on. When do they get put in is really what I'm asking.
So when we get the housing needs survey, we'll actually identify what the need is for to meet our housing requirement over the plan period, but also we'll specify the types of housing that they've identified from their evidence base. As Kate says, we will definitely share that with you. We definitely want to have the conversation with the housing team about that when we get that information. But that will set the policies. Obviously, as we go through to develop the plan and the policies, we will be talking to the steering group and bringing back proposals to go out to formal consultation next year.
So sorry, the proposal is that you have a first draft by next April or something, isn't it? I think so. That work's got to happen in the next few months, then, hasn't it? Is the housing needs survey happening now?
Yes. Can I just reassure you that housing colleagues are involved? Yeah. So housing officers like Joe Humble have been heavily involved in setting the brief for the work originally before we went out to procure the consultants to do the work, and then also reviewing the drafts. Yeah, so that work is underway at the moment, and we should be looking to complete that shortly. Once it's completed, it will go on the website with all the other evidence, and we will circulate a briefing note to members. And we are looking to also set up some briefing sessions for members on where we are with the local plan and what the evidence is telling us at key stages.
I think I need to have a word with Joe, really.
Yeah, I think the work has been delayed because obviously our housing requirement changed as a result of the standard methodology changing it in December, and so we've had to go back and revisit some of that work which had been already undertaken. So it is behind where we'd hoped it to be.
Thanks for that, Alison, and for the question, Sarah. Simon Coles.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, thank you, Mike. It's just a query on the timescales that we're looking at for this piece of consultative work leading into the local plan, because whilst our housing requirements have changed, I don't think the date for the production of the plan in and of itself has changed, unless I'm misinformed.
So we will be bringing a full update report to the next meeting of this subcommittee in October, which will set out exactly where we are. We are just re-evaluating in terms of the timeline where we are and whether or not we're going to meet what's currently set out in the local development scheme.
Okay, thank you very much for the update. I look forward to October's meeting. Thank you, Alison.
Thanks, Simon. And we've got Helen Kay online.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah, sorry about that earlier. Something happened. I had to turn the computer off
No worries.
and on again. It's about development of policy. I've asked about this before, and I did see something in the I'm going to skim reading all the appendixes about engagement with members, and I'm just a bit concerned about whether that's going to happen ahead of us going out with a sort of set of policies under Regulation 18, which I understand is happening in spring 2026. I've asked about policy before, and I've been told two things. That first of all, because of the government planning and infrastructure bill and certain things that may come from government, certain policies may be set for us and we won't be able to do much about it. For example, there's an indication that all new houses will have solar panels on, which I think would be great. So I'd be happy with that. I also understand that some policy is going to be sort of arise from, which was just what Alison was just saying, from the housing needs assessment and from other evidence base that we have, like how much employment land is needed, that sort of thing. However, I do think there's still going to be some wriggle room in there for where we can set our own policies, and that wriggle room is kind of the interesting bit for us, really, isn't it? Because it's the bit that we might want to all sit around and chew the fat and have a chat about. And that could be anything from, I don't know, like land use in sort of rural areas, that sort of thing. So I'm just wondering at what stage, if at all, there is going to be ability for members to have a chat about that wriggle room and all the public. Now, when I looked at the schemes, I think it was in Appendix B, I thought that there was some space for that, but then it said if resources permit. Could you just expand on that, please?
Thanks, Helen. Who wants to have a go? Kate?
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Kay, for the question. So that's the kind of main purpose of the member steering group, to help with developing policies. In terms of the planning and infrastructure bill, the government have given a clear indication that they'll be publishing national development management policies. Not quite sure what the timescale is now, by the end of the year now. So and they will obviously then have to go out for consultation, and they will then drive what we need to then put in our own local plan. So obviously won't be able to repeat what is already set by national policy. So the member steering group will be the one that we will go to with seeking input on policy development to feed into the local plan. We will then publish the local plan, and that is the draft local plan, currently scheduled for the spring of next year. And that is when public consultation, the statutory consultation stage, by which members of the public can feed into those policies and provide input. But we will, of course, be giving member briefing sessions on where we are with the local plan more generally, if there are members that are still interested but not part of that steering group.
Okay, thank you. So a subsidiary question is that I followed this from a distance with two other councils, and it felt like the options were already quite narrowed down when we got to Regulation 18. And went out, and it was like, do you want, and when there were options, it was, do you want A or B? And nobody had thought of C as being another option. If people write back in, the public, in the spring of next year and say, hey, none of you have thought of option C. It might be around more cooperative housing or something like that that we haven't put in there. How receptive are we to changing? I mean, it goes back to what Richard was saying really about the track changes. How receptive are we to, and at what point is there a judgment? And is it somebody who sits in the policy team that then goes, well, we've had 4 people respond and say this, but it's not really a great number of people compared with the 4,000 that responded in total. Therefore, we're not going to put this in. I mean, does that end up being a sort of a judgment that a policy officer makes as to whether something gets in or not?
It will be a judgment for this subcommittee ultimately. But with any comments that we receive as part of the Regulation 18 consultation, we have to consider and advise as to how we've responded to them. And then we will be taking those forward into what would be the publication version, which would have to be agreed by this subcommittee before we publish the plan. And that's essentially, at that stage, it's the plan that the council wants to adopt. But there's a further stage after publication for people to make representations on the soundness of what's being proposed, which would then be considered by the inspector as part of a local plan examination. So there's a number of different stages at which those thoughts can be taken into account.
Okay, sorry, just one more thing and I'll finish. It feels to me that as we go through that process, things get more and more fixed and they're less and less likely to change. So that's why I'm looking at the early stages as to where people feed in, both as members, but also the public, and about how those things are logged. It sounds like they're all going to be logged anyway, be it by digital means or it sounds like it's all going to be logged by digital means anyway. Anyway, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Helen. I think it's probably worth using as an example. I've seen at scrutiny on a number of occasions members asking for stronger guidance on how listed buildings and conservation areas might benefit from renewable energy and from conservation measures. And so that's, I think, an example of perhaps a member-led policy that I hope would be picked up in round 1 of the local plan consultations and the drafting of that document. But I think if it weren't, for example, there's an opportunity for the member steering group to say, hey, we'd really like to see something on this, please. So I think that's a big element of what the steering group could achieve. Thanks, Helen. Simon.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, again, on this question of conservation areas, because I think it's really important. Thank you, Sarah. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are some very good policies in some very nice parts of the UK. I was thinking of Bath in particular, a World Heritage City, where some of their conservation schemes and plans make perfect sense. So I think there's a piece of work that could be done there that maybe the members steering group could become involved in to ascertain which is best in class. Because I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel necessarily. I think we can adopt some first class, world class packages to start with.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Simon. I'm sure that'll be picked up by the team as we go through the early stages of the plan. Anyone else? No, and there's no one else online, so we'll move to the recommendation, which is that the Planning and Transport Policy Executive Subcommittee 1 approves local plan topic paper 1, consultation and engagement, Appendix A as the approach to community and stakeholder involvement in the preparation of the Somerset local plan. 2, notes the alignment of the topic paper with the Council's statement of community involvement and the local development scheme. 3, approves the consultation and engagement activities plan, Appendix B, as a live document to be updated throughout the plan making process. 4, approves the terms of reference for the cross-party member steering group, Appendix C. 5, notes the proposed membership structure and operational arrangements. And 6, agrees that the group will commence its work following this approval. And can I have a proposer for that, please? Bill, thank you. And seconder, Sarah, thanks very much. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, team. And we'll move on to item 9, the forward plan. Alison will take us through that.
Thank you, Chair. There are a number of amendments that need to be made to the forward plan for the next meeting on the 8th of October. you've heard earlier about the Oval Town Centre master plan going out for consultation. It's unrealistic to think that we would have done the consultation, assessed the comments, made the changes and brought it back for the 8th of October meeting. So
sorry, my microphone's on.
So that needs to move, please, to the December meeting. Similarly, the Norton St Phillips neighbourhood plan, which is down to be made, we have had a JR challenge on the neighbourhood plan, and that means that we will not be in a position to bring that report to the 8th of October meeting either. So the Ilminster neighbourhood plan is still on schedule to come to that meeting, so you'll be pleased to know. Equally, the travel plan guidance, the local transport plan, the consultation on that has been extended, the period's been extended, and again that means that it won't be ready to be brought back to the 8th of October meeting. Hopefully Councillor Wilkins is aware of that, but that's what Sunita Mills has advised. So we hope to have the waste plan review, or at least an update on where we are with the waste plan review. We will have the local plan 6 monthly update report, as I mentioned earlier, and we're also intending to bring a report on the Taunton Central Conservation Area designation. We've just been doing some work around consolidating that conservation area, and that will come to the 8th of October meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Alison. Any questions on the forward plan? Or are we all good with that? No, excellent. We appear to be done at 15:06. And I thank you all for attending online and in person. And thanks to our officer team for the work they've done to present the items today. Thank you.